Well, at these celebratory but sad occasions, Deborah and I think that we often lose sight of, in the flush of our tributes to those whom we love, of two things. One is the need for scholarly truth-telling, and the other is the importance of proper poetic embellishment. And since Deborah and I are, in fact, little known to you, co-founders of TRIPE, that's the organization Truthfully Researched, Interesting, and Poetical Encomia. We thought this afternoon to make sure that the basic outlines of the life and career of D2, sometimes known as Doug Davis, was registered, and registered poetically. And since his retirement is somewhat of a catechismic event, we propose to offer it to you by way of catechism.
I think you meant cataclysmic.
Whatever. Still, DR is going to ask questions, and I'm going to give answers.
Where did D2 acquire his great skill for charming and courting all those with whom he comes in contact?
D2 acquired his great courting skill in the luminescent streets of Ortonville.
And from whom did D2 acquire his great acquire the great capacity to hold so much information in his head?
The persons most responsible for his head being porous were D2's sainted parents, Gertrude and Morris.
When D2's habit of daydreaming at the University of Minnesota became unsafe, what did he do to make it less dangerous?
In order to make his musin safer, D2 married Susan Schaefer.
Was one of the first things D2 did to help fight the onset of middle aging that attacks us all?
To stave off ordinary plebeian mild senescence, D2 and his bride studied the shape of Zoean adolescence.
What did D2 become after studying psychological patterns of young women in Morocco?
From being a Moroccan neo-psycho-gynecologist, D2 became a close to Concha-Hawkins cyber personologist.
From whom did D2 learn about dreams and their deeper meaning?
Long before he was successfully employed, D2 took to reading Dr. Sigmund Freud.
Who else did D2 look toward to discover the foundations of erotic attraction?
On matters having to do with kissin' and clinchin', D2 was captivated by the voice of Thomas Pynchon.
Did any other writer influence the young D2?
For a model of a serious, wordy, and erotic merry man, D2 looked to Minnesota poet and womanizer John Barryman.
But what gradually replaced the erotic as central in D2's reading of these and other figures?
While the rest of us were still concerned with matters sexual, D2 was reading Siggy and all others in light of the hypertextual.
Does this suggest that D2 became less concerned with issues of eros?
No. Interest in accounts of the operational psychotic was overtaken by a theory of the computational erotic.
And when D2 discovered that cyber-technology was slow in developing in Arabic-speaking nations, what did he do?
When he heard that IT Arabi was between a hard place and a rock, D2 set aside considerable disk space for Al-Musharraf.
When D2 and S2 finally moved into the house of their dreams, what activities did they finally have room for?
None, since S2's business filled the house from floor to roof, with many a middle atlas rug with pillow and with poof.
And what were D2 and S2 nonetheless able to do in this house?
They prepared for their friends all sorts of fine cuisines by cooking curries, idlis, bestillas, and tagines.
And just how did these two professionals in the field of adolescent studies raise their daughter Layla?
Ignoring implications either Freudian or Lacanian, they provided her with a childhood both Moroccan and Pennsylvanian.
And what do D2 and S2 plan to do in face of the fact that senescence nevertheless comes, weakening us all?
Facing the inevitable loss of inner moxie, D2 plans to retire to the freedom-loving shores of Asa and Winnemaki.
And how does the Haverford community feel in the face of their departure?
Like the singer of a Qasida, ghazal, or other Arabic verse, who might cry, "With you guys no longer around our campfire, things are going to be one whole hell of a lot worse."